Here we are. Angela, Jared, do attention. No, just kidding. How is everyone today? How are you guys? I am anointing myself in this experience with some frankincense. So just in case you wondered, I am bringing in the energies of the gods for an experience that is already written. It's pre-sent to this now moment, and it happens that Kip Brooks and I are going to be co-hosting this next deep dive into what it means to be a peaceful inner warrior and to actually have a legacy and to talk about what legacy truly means. So, Kip.
Yes.
I am looking forward to sharing this experience with you, and you wanted to start with a story, and I'm aware that we're not yet live over on Facebook or over on YouTube, which it would be nice to go on YouTube, but we're going to be posting this video after. So the benefit to those who are with us currently is that your faces will get to be seen, which is why I always say show up as who you wish to be whenever you come to any of these meetings. And so we're on a summit talking about legacy. And so we are just now going up live on Facebook. So if anyone cares to share this message, then please do let anybody that you know would benefit from being part of an empowering experience know that we are live and that you and your beautiful faces, fully unmasked and present, are able to be seen by the whole world. So thank you for being brave, as I always say, for showing up on this call. I didn't mean to continue sitting with Jesus, but we're going to just move him up onto there because I've got a teaching that I wanted to share actually, and it's handwritten because that's just how I roll. And there are actually two spaces for puzzle pieces that have not yet been completed. And I say this because we're going to get to it, but the puzzle pieces may include something you have to share or contribute. And so, as I had shared in the last session, where we had touched on the sacred sojourn of the soul and what it takes to go within in order to not go without, in order to actually create a legacy that reflects and respects who and whose we truly are. I've left two of the spaces unfilled because instead of trying to rush it to completion and choose pieces of material that weren't going to be the nicest in the quilt, so to speak, my mom's a quilter, I decided to just leave them blank. And I know, I trust, I have faith that those are going to be filled by what someone else contributes back to me. And so my contribution is saying, hey, let's do these and finding great people to do them with. And so, Kip Brooks, it was awesome to connect again for our second summit on legacy. And the first one, we actually touched on a pretty tender subject where we actually showed the video of what's going on from a higher perspective. It just happens to have some very polarizing actors and real life situations that got me personally persecuted from certain individuals who threatened to know whether I was a Trump supporter and banned me from him in the end. And it's just like, I'm not pro one way or another. I am just simply saying we need to find our own sovereignty. And so all of this really comes back to legacy because at the end of the day, it is our sovereignty we're fighting for. It's how we want our story to be remembered.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad, it's really sad that, especially time like this, but even when emotions aren't all high and politics aren't all charged up and everything, it's sad that you can't recognize something someone did that was good or said or whatever without getting bashed by the other side. And it's like we constantly create these false binaries of it's got to be this way or that way, and there's no in between. And it's like, that's a bunch of crap. Like, we all screw up and we all do really well in other things. It's like there's something positive you can say about anybody. You just got to look for it. And I remember one of my mentors, actually the one that directed me towards joining JMT. She had told me, she's like, watch people when they meet someone. They'll learn one little thing about them, either before they meet them or like shortly after, and they'll just use that to build a foundation for why they don't like the person. Just like one little thing. It's like, yeah, once we meet someone and we actually like them, or even fall in love or whatever, it's like we will overlook every red flag on the planet. It's like trying to make that a worthwhile relationship, whether it's a friendship or business relationship or romantic relationship. It's like, but imagine if we took that same approach with every single person we met. It really kind of changed how I started looking at things. Like, yeah, what is it about this one little disagreement that causes us to do that? And it's whenever there's something that has a trigger for us, it really sets it off. And especially in today's time currently, it's really sad how much people feel like we're walking on eggshells, because if you say one little thing wrong, supporting one person, you're either a racist, or you want to steal everybody's guns, or you want to do that. Like, it's all this, and it's like, I didn't say anything like that. I just said, hey, that was a really nice tie this guy's wearing on TV, or whatever it is. But yeah, people, when we're in baggage, when we're running around in the reaction phase instead of response, with emotions taking over, it's not a pretty time.
It's not a pretty time, and our streaming ability onto Facebook was just minimized. Our video was ended. So we are evidently saying words that we're not meant to say. And so we are not able to actually be live on the platform that I was going to go live on. So why not try it on YouTube?
Outside the law.
Wow. So before we go live then, and Jared, how are you guys doing? You guys want to say anything? Well,
yesterday. Oh, I'm doing good. I don't know about. I'm doing good. It's lonely here with this pandemic, but we're getting through it, so that's the important part.
Yeah, doing great. Excited to be here.
Woo! Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Where you guys located?
Kelso, Washington.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm in Sudbury, Ontario.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to 46 out of the 50 states, and Washington's one of the 4 I've yet to make. Had it all set up, and then I was in Tahoe for a couple months working and living, and then had an accident, had to get a surgery, and couldn't make I was gonna make a road trip to Oregon and Washington. And I was supposed to be in Ontario last October and June, but COVID kind of screwed me over a little bit. But I'll be in Toronto in April.
Oh, brilliant. We'll have to try.
So yeah, let's keep I'm keeping the intention it's going to pan out. So have a wedding to go to, and yeah, but there's still a whole lot of stuff up in the air on it, so we'll see. But
sure,
yeah, I'll keep you posted for sure.
Tomorrow's going to be a pretty big deciding factor for a lot of stuff, which I think is why we got kicked off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we can't talk about politics at all in order to, So
I actually just lost a friend over politics. I don't really know if it's a friend if I lost them over it, but we had a discussion and it just went down south from there about this vaccine and all that, and Trump and Biden and
Yeah, it's crazy how attached to that people get. And yeah, I don't understand it.
it makes us all so uncomfortable. It's just like we don't even know what to say. We don't know where to look. It's just like there is something that is just fundamentally not okay about what is happening right now, that it's just like it's the elephant that we don't want to look at, even though we know it's there and we want to talk about it and we want to deal with it, but we don't know how to deal with it. And then it's just like it becomes the thing that either we say, who cares, I don't know who has the certificate to move it, but like it needs to be moved, so let's move it. Like I feel like we're at the place now where that's what needs to happen, and we're the ones that are showing up, we're the ones that are putting effort in, we're the ones that at the end of the day, when people say, what were you doing when humanity was being overtaken, we can say we were doing our best. And that's part of the Warriors Code, which was the 4 agreements that Don Miguel Ruiz shared as part of his Toltec wisdom book, which was don't make assumptions, be impeccable with your word, don't take things personally, and always do your best. We do those 4 things, we create an amazing life for ourselves and legacy as part of it too.
Yeah, huge.
You had a story, Kip, that you were going to share, and
Been known to have a few.
it seems so. I feel like it's just kind of like this was meant to be with so many more people, and there's an element to me that it's just like, damn it, I have to be honest in just saying that. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's just like, isn't it kind of precious to have it only be the ones who are here too? Like without all of the outside energies needing to come in, it's just like, do all of the things that we do live need to be streamed live? Like I have this inclusivity in my nature, literally by my blueprint. It's like I'm highly inclusive. So I really like to get people involved in what I'm doing and what I think is exciting, and it's more fun when there's more involved, especially when it's beneficial, which is what I like to most do. And so it's just like I just have been following my own blueprint by like just rallying behind causes or belief systems or ideas that resonated for me for years. It's just like, I don't know if it's common to like send out 50 to 200 messages a day to people sometimes, but like sometimes that's the reality for me. And it's just like, I've got enough people, because it's just like everybody needs a little piece. And it's just like, maybe this is the piece that's going to fill in my puzzle, because they're going to be like, no. And then they're going to tell me the piece I didn't know about to get their side of the story verified. And then to say, but like, actually, look over here, because this one links over here, and then here, and here too. And then it goes down, and then here. And suddenly we're in the same place. It's like this. I was talking with Jackie Phoenix after the first interview that we did about Article 61 and the Magna Carta 1215. And in it, I had said about all of the rabbit holes, and she's like, no, this is the foxhole. We get to the foxhole, and to the end of the foxhole, like you find the den. And it's just like, oh, okay, wow. So the den is ultimately the nesting ground. And that's ultimately what we've been socialized to want to create as well. And so now our den is being shook. And it's like that picture of the ant getting ripped apart by red ants, and it's a black one. And then ultimately it's like red and black ants coexist perfectly harmoniously for a while, until then it's like somebody shakes the glass and they're no longer they're no longer friendly. They're fighting and killing each other and destroying one another because they perceive each other to be the enemy based on their color, to distinguish which side are you rooting for. It's like in a sports team, you wear the jackets.
Yeah, and it's wild how easily we allow ourselves to get grouped into that just off of something as simple as color or any form of label, right? It's like, man, and it all exists for a reason. Like it's great to have diversity. What's the quote? If two people are always in agreement, then one of them's not needed. And it's like, we're supposed to have different opinions, and that's what makes the world work. Like that's what makes it flow. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it fun. Especially if all thought is coming, or all opinions are coming from some form of individual thought. But I mean, that's the utopia way to look at it. But yeah, it's so heartbreaking to see people who just have opposing views, who can't respect the other person's view, and like just see the person as just a being, just another spirit on this spinning rock through outer space. It's like, just freaking love each other. It's not that hard. It's really not. Like you don't even have to have that many conversations. But there can be respect there instead of this just tension and anger and so much animosity and everything built up. It's so sad because it's and like how it links to legacy. It's like, I don't think, I mean, I know when we're locked up in those debates and arguments and letting emotion run wild with us, we're not realizing the ripple it's causing everywhere else. It's like, who's watching you? Who else is affected by that? Outside of that moment, what else can this bring? Good or bad? Just don't go into many conversations anymore with that idea, or with the proper intention of ecology, and not ecology of plants, animals, out, all of that, like that level. Ecology of, is it good for me? Is it good for the community? Is it good for the world? If you can't check yes to all those, then shut up, find another way, or find something that does, because it can be a win-win-win in all three columns. It just takes a little more effort. And unfortunately, we're raised in this minute rice, instant gratification type idea of, oh no, just go now. Everything's got to be fast. Everything's got to be now. And there's no time. I got to go home and watch my sitcom for 10 hours, 10 hours a day. And there's no time to actually sit here and connect with a human at a real level and try to solve something, because we have to reflect on ourselves too damn much, and that hurts. That's scary.
We've completely made it about idolizing ones who said don't idolize or worship false gods and gurus. It's just like, we have actually created religions based on the ones that said take God out of the box, and instead they said this is the box that you belong in, and it's just like, the insanity of this is worthy of the little brain exploding emoticon that I absolutely love. But the point
I use that on the daily.
Yeah, right? It's just like, what is going on right now? And I noticed behind me that I actually had this shirt, and it says Provincial Youth Championships, and then Saskatchewan Tennis Association and Zone 8. But the reason this is significant is actually because I got this when I was 15. No, I was 16. I was 16 and I got selected for a bursary, a language bursary called the Explore program. And I went to St. Boniface, Winnipeg. So I took a train at Via Rail for my first time and went out to St. Boniface, Winnipeg for 5 weeks to be in a French-speaking program. And while I was there, I started exercising using the campus gym all the time. And my girlfriends and I, of which there was a little posse of like 5 of us, that they were just like, we just got together and we'd go to classes and we were all in different levels, but we all spoke English together when we were out of hearing range of anyone that would report us. And then the rest of the time we had to speak French, otherwise we'd get 3 avertissements and then we would be sent away. So anyway, the point of this is I bought this back when I was 16 and now I'm 33, and I wore it then and it's got holes in it, and I haven't worn it a tremendous amount because it makes massive pit stains, and that's not my biggest a delight. But the point is I have this sweater here, and it's so significant about provincial youth championships, because provincial, I just had a conversation with a gentleman that I'd met at the Superstore months ago. And basically, he was telling me about the BNA Act and about how the government, like, we don't actually own our properties. The government owns it all. That's why we pay property tax. That's our rent for the land that we think we own. And so everybody's going to be in for a rude awakening, because if we think that what happened to the Native American people of this land couldn't happen to us, what makes us any superior to those who came before us and didn't know our rights if we don't know ours now? So it's just like provincial, because what he was saying is that all of the provinces are actually stated to be sovereigns in and of themselves, separate from Canada. As of the 90s, I think 1935, I think he had said. I wrote it down as I was taking notes, because these are the conversations of note that we pass on, and then we come into summits like this and we say, hey, I learned this. And then somebody else can say, oh, and I already knew this, this, this. And this is how we complete these puzzles. These summits, it may look very insignificant to have 4 people that are from various parts of the US and Canada together on a call right now, but it's significant that it is two feminine energies and 2 masculine energies balanced as a diagonal, and the diamond, and everything coagulating into a perfect mixture. So I think that all of that is significant, in that we are sovereign beings as well. So each of us represent the provinces that are also sovereign. The youth is reflective of the fact that the inner child is actually the soul. And all of us are on the sacred sojourn for the soul that incarnated into this body that is yours and mine, for this experience, that chose to be alive at this leading edge of creativity, where we choose the timeline we're going to focus on, whether it be the fear that destroys us or the faith that helps us rise and say, yes, we can be the change. Yes. And be the brave heart of our own movie, because we're it. And then championships, because that's the point. We're it. This whole legacy. Someone impacted you in a way that they may not be aware, but that was how you wanted to share legacy from your perspective, Kip. So I'd love for you to do that, and I'll retire my shirt.
Yeah, well, I've got to do a little bit of backstory, but not much. But yeah, there was this, didn't grow up in the happiest of households, and when I was 8 years old, I started having suicidal thoughts and desires or whatever. Luckily, at that age, I didn't know I had the power to take my life in my own hands, so to speak. By the time I learned that I did, I had a sister who was about 7.5 years younger than me, and I still have her, but she's still around. And I was very attached to her, but by the time I realized that, suicide was a thing, or, heard about it, learned about it, anything like that, I'd already created this idea that, like, I was her shield from all this crap that, the universe was sending to me and all this. And it's like, I've got to stay around to keep her safe. So I can't do that. Not until she's old enough to, stand on her own or whatever. Well, time went on, and that wasn't, didn't live a happy teenage life or anything. And when I was 15, my dad passed away, and my mom started getting Social Security money. And so every month she would get a check of like $632. And as long as I was in school up to a certain age, well, I was supposed to graduate at 17, and she came to me and asked me to repeat 12th grade. There's no accidents in the universe. She's like, if you'll repeat, she's like, I can get another year of Social Security money from your dad passing away. So hoping to get love and acceptance and provide value for the family, for once, I was like, I did it without thinking about it. And but of course, it didn't help my self-esteem a whole lot. And of course, nothing really changed. So it just became more depressed. But everything has a way of working itself out. And I say the universe always seems to have it figured out. Creator, God, whatever you want to call it. Even if you're atheist, it's like energy exists and there's good to it. And it seems to line up and get us where we're going. So repeating that following year, I have no idea why I did, but I would show up for certain classes and I would skip all the rest, like not even go. Because I didn't care. I was like, it doesn't matter if I graduate or not, because as soon as high school's over, that check stops, I'm worthless, and it's done. That was my whole entire plan. It's the only goal I'd ever set in my life. Well, I go through the first semester and nothing's changed. And all I needed to graduate was half a credit. And it was the second semester of a world history class. And I come in, I do exactly what I'd been doing and just showed up to that class. It was like my second class of the day, and I would go to sleep or just completely blank out and ignore everything and, doodle or journal or whatever, but was not present at class. I never acted up really. I was just disengaged. And one day, first week or so of the semester, Coach Calderon, he was a new teacher at our school. It was only his second year as a teacher, but first year at my school. He says he wants to see me after class. So he tells me to hang out. And everybody leaves and I'm just sitting there, ready for the normal, like, you're such a waste of time. Why don't you drop out? Whatever. Because I was always on the honor roll in elementary school. From 6th grade to 7th grade, it switched. And I went from A's and B's my 6th grade year to mostly F's and like 2 D's. And no one ever once asked, man, what's going on? They just started punishing and seeing me as my transcripts and telling me I'm a lost cause and all this stuff, which helped tremendously with my self-esteem and self-worth and all that. Well, Coach Calderon was totally different. And he came up to me and he slammed this stack of papers on the desk in front of me. And he's like, I don't know what you have going on at home. I don't know what's going on inside your head. He's like, I don't know you. He's like, I don't even know you in this class because you don't engage, you don't interact, you don't do anything. He said, I call on you, you ignore me. He's like, but what I do know, and he took his hands off paper and then started pointing at him and kind of tapping on him. He's like, what I do know is this is not you. He's like, this is just a bunch of paper and it's not you, speaks nothing of who you are. I won't allow you to accept it from yourself anymore. He's like, I'm not going to either. He's like, here, we're going to make you graduate. And that was it. And I was just like dumbfounded. I didn't say a word that I remember. And then he's like, you're free to go. I just wanted to let you know that. And I bolted out of the room. I felt so uncomfortable because no one had, out of all those years, all those teachers, no one had ever said anything like that to me. It was always, the complete opposite of that. And, but that simple 30-second conversation created a ripple, planted a seed in my head. And I never even realized it. It took me a couple of years to actually realize how big of an impact it had. Actually, I'm 42 now and 41, 42. Yeah, something like that. And I still, every couple of months, will have an aha moment of realizing how much value that conversation, created for my life. And I started showing up. I would skip every other class. I would sneak into school because, let's say his was my second class of the day. I would skip the first class and I would sneak in to have to break into school to get to his class. And then I would leave after that. But I graduated. And then graduation day comes, some more time passes, the checks stop, and I was still around. And then I started making plans, started making goals. And then finally my mid-20s or early 20s, I realized, man, the way I've been living, just sucks. And it's, maybe I should try being happy once in a while. I started moving towards other things and started creating successes in my life. And then it was probably my late 20s. I think around the time my son was born, actually, my oldest son, I think it was around that time that it hit me one day and I realized, holy crap, like I'm not supposed to be here. What happened? Because, kids come in your life, start thinking about all the good, bad, and ugly about your life. And if you're a fit parent and all of that. And I started investigating, like, what really happened? Because I was set on that. There was like no doubt in my mind. It was like painful to even think about waiting that long. And then it hit me one day. And I reflect back on it quite a bit. I tracked him down after a while, sent him a message. We've had a few conversations back and forth, and every time we've tried to set up a meeting to actually meet in person so I could go and talk to him, it's something's happened, or there's been a quarantine, or there's been all these little bumps along the way. But we've stayed in contact here and there, and every time one of my clients or one of my students, because I train and mentor coaches, every time I hear something like a really good testimonial from one of my students, from one of their clients or something, and or one of my clients sends me something of gratitude, or my kids do something really cool, my 13-year-old through his Instagram page has had like 4 people in the last year reach out to him, telling him they're not going to commit suicide because he's inspired them. But these 15-year-olds, when he was 12, it's like 15-year-olds don't talk to 12-year-olds, but he's out there inspiring people. And every time that happens, I think about Coach Calderon. I'm like, without that man dedicating that 30 seconds plus, because he really went out his way to help find me a way to graduate and make it work around my strategy and how I showed up and everything else. And I'm like, wow, without that conversation, I wouldn't be here and that wouldn't be happening. And it's like, so yeah, I've created legacy through some mentees and my kids, but it's like, it goes back to him. And he has no clue, like to the level, like he's, messaged him a couple of times and he hears some cool stuff and, whatever, but it's like, he has no idea the impact that's had. And we don't know moving forward from this day on. And then, as those ripples go out, like there's no telling what else Jaden, my 13-year-old, is going to do. But also one of the kids that reached out to him, still the coolest text message I ever got was a screenshot of their conversation. And it's his 16-year-old, or he was just turning 16 when he reached out to him, but he was going to kill himself, had no friends, had no self-esteem or whatever. Started, and Jaden has his own little fitness YouTube channel and Instagram page, and teaching how to get fit and all this without going to a gym or whatever, and do, no weights, no equipment, all that stuff. And the kid started following it, started feeling better about himself, joined a wrestling team. And now he's got friends, and now he's on the wrestling team, and apparently was doing quite well for a beginner. So it's like, there's no telling where that kid's going to go. And then also the newfound gratitude he has for life. And I can speak volumes about that from my own experience. So once you get it, coming from that far of a darkness, so once you actually see the light and really take ownership of it and start creating it for yourself, there's a different gratitude and appreciation I feel like you have that just might not be able to understand without having walked in that, that state for a while. So it creates this urge to want to help others, be that catalyst for someone else, that mirror to hold up, and tell people all the time. My first business name that I incorporated was Demonstrate Possibility, and that's what I wanted. I use it kind of as my my own motto, my own, slogan, just to keep me going, my own affirmation of, okay, is this demonstrating possibility, or am I being a victim here, or am I being lazy, whatever. And it helps hold me accountable to doing that. Because it's like, I teach the kids to be good people, but I don't ever tell them, hey, you're going to be a coach, you're going to be this. It's like, you're going to go be you. I'm like, don't do what I do. It's like, go out and find you and do that. That's what you're here for. That's between you and creator. I have nothing to do with that. I just feed you once in a while. And he's doing something, they're all doing something totally different than me, but they all have different stories from like kids at school or somebody that they've inspired. So there's no telling what that kid's going to do, and the kid after that's going to do, and then how that kid shows up in their home, or in their church community, or wherever they go. And to think about that it gives me chills. And I mean, we hear about it all the time. Someone who is going to end their life, and they're on the way to, like, I used to live in the Bay Area for a short period of time. So San Francisco has, the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's very popular suicide destination. And I've heard so many stories about one of my friends is actually part of a foundation who goes out to do exactly this. They go out to the bridge and they like try to wave and greet everyone who walks out on the bridge. And it was because there were so many people who were like, I was going to commit suicide. I was walking down the bridge to go jump off. And then someone said, hey, how you doing? Some stranger smiled and waved. And it was enough to make them realize the world's not that bad a place. It's like, if they care enough to say that, there's got to be somebody who cares enough about me, or, and this takes them out of that state, and they start thinking. I said, man, it doesn't take that damn much to really create a legacy, for good or bad. But it's just having that positive intention and go into it with this idea. Because too often people think legacy is defined by how many cars you own, how many businesses, how much money you made, how many employees you have. And I know I do a lot of men's work. And so often we'll meet someone who they thought legacy was how many women they slept with, or, all this different stuff. And it's none of that. It's about the connection you create with someone, and then the connection you cause them to create with their own self and their own greatness. Like John Maxwell always said, it's the role of a leader is not to create followers, it's to create leaders. And it's the same thing. Our role as a human is to help other humans see the beauty and the humanity and love in themselves, and demonstrates a possibility for them, help them find it in themselves. So yeah, we do a nightly gratitude ritual, and let's say at least once a quarter, Coach Calderon is the focus of mine, like in my mind, but he's in my mind a lot. If you've ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks, last line in the movie, spoiler alert, he's dying, and he tells the guy who he died to save, he's like, earn this, because lots of people died to save Private Ryan. He tells Private Ryan, he's like, earn this. And that plays in my head, but through the projection of Coach Calderon, it's like, wow, he really did something for me that I don't see a way to repay, but it keeps me going in this direction. Because it's like, if I can help someone else the way he served me, well, bam, there you go. And that's it. But and if I keep going with that day in and day out, and luckily I absolutely love it, and it's addicting to see that spark of hope and possibility in someone's eyes. I mean, you've experienced it. It's there's nothing like it. And so yeah, it becomes addictive, and it doesn't come from I owe him thing. It's like, I owe myself this. That's beautiful. And that's what made me reach out to him. It's like, wow, I want him to know what he gave me, yeah, and what I'm going to continue to give myself, that he taught me how to, without realizing. Maybe did it. Maybe some wicked genius, some fifth plane master who descended to come down and help some of us. I don't know. But yeah, he's without the hell, like none of this would be here. You know, I wouldn't be experiencing this, and life would be totally different. And there's 3 kids downstairs wouldn't be here, you know, doing the beautiful things I see them doing all the time, all because of a 30-second conversation. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and we've all done that for somebody, just we're not always aware of it, and a lot of times they don't tell us because we're taught to keep all the mushy stuff to ourselves, or we're so connected to electronics and everything that we don't have the awareness to really click in and realize, you know. It's stuff like that got me to believe in meditation, because it's like, wow, when I'd quiet everything else, it's when those things would pop up. Prayer, meditation, breath work, some kind of quiet time. So if we just do that, realize someone somewhere has said something that has created a ripple that's kept us around some way or another. You know? And it's helped me look for, I have a mentor, Alex Van Dyne, and he says, he calls them smuggled I love you. He's, every time your mom's nagging at you as a kid, or your wife's on you about this, or your friends are on you about that, he's like, they're not getting on your case. He's like, it's smuggled I love yous. And he takes it to the point of when somebody cuts him off in traffic and, like, you know, yells at him or whatever, he's like, they're telling me to be safe. They just don't realize it, but it's a smuggled I love you. They want me to be safe and slow down. I'll do it. I'm not to that level yet. I'm working on it. But yeah, it's we start looking at it kind of through that lens. Wow, it's life takes on a little different ride, a little different approach.
Absolutely. It's kind of moving it away from life happens to me to life happens for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sean, you know Sean Stevenson, who he was? He's called the 3-foot giant. He was 2.5 feet tall, and born with all sorts of different conditions, obviously, and one of them was brittle bone disease. And his last words when he died was that. It was because actually Alex, my mentor, was really good friends with Sean, but yeah, Sean's last words, and it was kind of his life motto. His mom taught him when he was a kid was, "This happened for me, not to me, but for me." Yeah. And yeah, if you can just take that simple phrase and just repeat it over and over and start take ownership of it. I try. I don't do it 100%. I'm human. I lose it all the time. I lose sight of that. I can't even get the words out of my mouth some days. But the times you can, just it's amazing the ease it can put into your heart, and your soul, body, and how much brighter the world gets. Yeah, it's, makes life a lot easier to come at it through that perspective.
It's like climbing the spiral staircase of awareness, where it's like it's only just a small addition in terms of where you've just moved to, but it's a totally different perspective. And then it's the same within the high rise of perspective that I've created based on the emotional guidance system applied to a high rise building. Same address, but it's a completely different experience based on being at ground floor level compared to in the penthouse of peace, possibility, freedom, love, joy, agape, of being fully in that state of bliss by our own making, and understanding that, like, we're choosing the stairway that we're choosing, because we've got, like, Michael Seegers and I did the video about the causal body, which is the higher cloud, so to speak, that accrues our positively qualified karma, and then the electronic belt, which is the mass that keeps us recycling in the cycle of reincarnation, is what the explanation that he shares in the videos that we recorded in the Michael and Laura show go. But my understanding based on those, and then what I already knew, and part of how I say that these puzzle pieces are going to come from you, is because when Michael shared about the electronic belt and then the causal body, is that I realized that we could actually apply the emotions of the emotional guidance system to the electronic belt being where boredom starts the downward spiral, which is why they say that the devil's playground is or what do they say about
Idle hands.
the devil's playground?
Yeah.
So it's like boredom, it starts the downward spiral into pessimism, frustration, overwhelm, disappointment, doubt, worry, blame, discouragement, anger, revenge, rage, jealousy, insecurity, and then grief and depression. So that makes complete sense if we actually understand that the energies in motion have got suppressed, repressed, depressed, compressed, and tried to pretend don't exist, so that they're just floating around us as these energetic reminders not to make that mistake again. And it's going to come with us, not just from this lifetime, but past lifetimes if you believe in reincarnation either, which if you believe in the law of energy, everything being recycled, including our souls, it's like we're light that are embodied in this form for this lifetime, and then we'll go somewhere else after this to carry on the experience of us as the light that is the only thing that changes when we die, and the spark's gone. Everything else is the same. So that's kind of what I am seeing as how everything fits together, because if you actually then apply the causal belt or the causal body theory to where contentment begins, if you're into a state of contentment, that can take you into hopefulness, optimism, belief, enthusiasm, passion, and peace. So it's just like the causal body are states of experience, states of consciousness that take us to a higher collective level, whereas boredom and below are the negative qualified choices that are going to keep us out of where we are.
Yeah, to whatever you're talking about, the penthouse is a different view than down here. It's rising up different levels changes the view, but even what window we're looking out of, even on the same floor, right? Like we could have 3 different apartments on the 10th floor. I used to live in hotels all the time. I used to be a traveling consultant, and it's like sometimes I'd work with a team, and we'd all usually stay at the same place and just make things simpler. That's like, even if 2 rooms are side by side, you look out the window, it's like it changes the perspective just a little bit, but it's like over and over. Do that enough and start being aware of we have a conscious and unconscious mind, and our conscious mind only runs 5% of our life. The unconscious does 95%. Actually, some studies and school of thought say 99.5%, but go with the lower number and it's 95%. And most people are only aware that the unconscious mind runs, pulse, hair growth, digestion, things like that. But it's running all our beliefs, all our values, all our programming, all our virtues, everything that matters and controls our life. And most of us been installed between the ages of 0 and 7 in the imprint phase, when we didn't have a critical faculty to decide what was true or false. Everything came in as true. And the conscious mind can only take in 126 bits of information every second, and it's processing that much every single second. Unconscious mind is processing 4 million bits of information per second. Dr. Paul Sheely actually says 40 million bits, and sometimes I've even heard studies say up to 100 million. But if you go with the lowest number again, it's like 4 million bits versus 126. And if you take a bit and have it represented as a drop of water, that 4 million bits becomes a waterfall of 114 gallons per second. That 126 bits that the conscious mind gets is 1.1 teaspoons. So basically a bottle cap. And we've got this waterfall of 114 gallons going on every single second. And we're reaching in and getting a little teaspoon out. And the teaspoon we get is what we've programmed our mind to pay attention to. All the same 4 million bits, all that same 114 gallons is going on every single second. And most of it overlaps with things everybody else sees. That's why people can go in watch the same movie, 100 people see the same movie, you talk to 100 people, you'll get about 100 different reviews on it. And that's why, you know, when Oprah gave away the free car to everyone in her audience, got a car, my mom and many other people I knew, the first thing they said to it was, oh, but who's going to pay the taxes? You know, those poor people are going to have to pay the taxes on it. It's like, give me the taxes, give me the car, I'll deal with the taxes. I'll flip it and make money, pay the taxes, and I'll still profit. Like, who cares? It's a free car, it's brand new. Like, you know, but it's the programming that there's always a catch. There's always a, you know, nothing's free and clear. There's no easy way to get it. Everything's got to come hard. And if it doesn't, I'm going to find the way, you know. World-renowned hypnotist, Darren Brown, he created this little, like, I can't remember, he had some show and I only saw a few of them, but my favorite thing I ever saw him do was he put this statue in this town somewhere in Europe, and I think it was in Europe, and it's this little brown dog, and it was called the Lucky Dog Project, or, you know, experiment, or whatever it was. And he had a couple people, like literally 2 or 3 people, start a rumor around town that it was whoever would, you know, they created some story, passed around that that dog represented some lucky dog that used to live in the village centuries ago or whatever. And if you go and like pet the statue or whatever, you'll have good luck. Something, I can't remember exactly what that part of it was, but there was one guy in the town who didn't believe in that, didn't believe in anything, you know, didn't believe in luck, and actually believed he was the most unlucky person on the planet. And they heard about him and they started watching. They had cameras set up all over town, just watching how people would talk about the dog or how they would interact with each other and everything as they started believing this story and seeing things differently. And certain people in the town, they started like letting in on the prank, so to speak. And anyway, they had this one guy who was just grumpy all the time. And he owned his own little store in town, his own little shop. And they decided to take the experiment to show like his perception on how crappy the world was and how much life sucked, that he would never be able to find fortune, even if it was like right in front of him. So they would go in his store and he's sweeping the floor, and they would drop like $100 bill or something on the floor, and he would sweep it and never even see it, sweep it right in his dustpan. And they did things, they followed him around for a week and did all sorts of stuff like that, and he never once caught on to it. So at the end of it, they bring everybody into an auditorium and they show video of it, and they tell him what's going on. And he's like, there's no way, I would have seen that, I would have recognized that. Like, they gave him a winning lottery ticket, he never even looked at it, he threw it away. All this stuff, like he just had such an unconscious program and belief built in that nothing good would ever happen to him, that his physical eyes would not pick up on it, because our eyes don't see real time. We see through memory, we see through programming. And they show him the video and he was just dumbfounded, like he thought it was all like CGI or something at first, you know, he just couldn't believe it. They would show him, they're like filming themselves, here's the money, we put it down, there it is, here you come to sweep it right up like it was trash. And they had to show it to him over and over for him to believe that was real, because he had no awareness at all to it, but he could pick up every little thing that was wrong. And we all do that in some form or another. That's, you know, kind of like we were talking at the beginning of this call. There's so many debates, especially on social media, about various things, that we just get so pent up and we get so locked into a story. We're so scared to be proven wrong that we'll turn down anything. You know, any information that shows otherwise, we'll just block it out until someone literally takes it and can rub our face in it. And even then, most people still don't, because we've been taught not to be wrong, right? I mean, our school system marks out everything that's wrong on a paper, and we get scolded for that instead of celebrated for what we got right and building off of that, right? And if we're weak in some area and strong in another, they're like, well, why? You need to focus on your weakness and build that up. Like we're programmed from day one that we're not allowed to have that weakness, and we're not allowed to be wrong. We have to be right. If we're not right, boy, we better fight for it, you know, and till the other person's convinced or something. And it's really sad. because we actually have the tendency to believe that our whole past life has been wrong up to that point. Now that we have this new information, it's like, oh, you did everything the best you could with that information. Now you have new information. Now you can blaze another trail in a different direction, and things will just get better. But instead, we have that tendency to, like, no. A story I tell quite a bit that it was about a 67-year-old grandmother in, I think, Tampa, Florida. In the 80s, she was home, lived on one of those neighborhoods, that's like on a grid. Kids are playing out in the street, stickball or something. And it's the summer. Everybody's at work pretty much. And so a couple of neighborhood kids, including her 13-year-old grandson, out playing stickball on the street because no cars are coming. And there were a couple of guys working on an old like Ford Granada or something, putting brakes on it, and they had the car jacked up. They realized they had the wrong part or needed something else. They go to the parts store, and the grandmother, she's making lunch for the kids, and all of a sudden she hears some screaming. She goes outside and sees her grandson is underneath that car because the ball went under it and he went after it and knocked the car off the jack. Car lands on him and pins him to the ground. She runs up, she lifts this car up, weighs like over 2 tons, lifts it off of him. He crawls out. She sets the car down. As she's setting the car down, the 3 guys who were working on the car show up, 3 or 4 guys, full grown men. And everybody checks out, everybody's good. The grandson just got pinned. He had a couple of scrapes and bruises, all cosmetic, nothing else, just shaken up more than anything. Those full grown men come over, try to lift the car up to put it on the jack. All 4 of them could not do it. But this one 67-year-old grandmother did. So word spread, it got in the paper and things. And there was this guy writing, some journalist was writing an article that he was hoping to turn into a book. I don't know if he ever actually did. I should know, but I've never actually looked at it that far. He heard about this. So he was writing this article on, phenomenal, like superhuman feats. And he heard about it. He starts calling her and he's trying to get her to interview, and she wouldn't do it. And she would refuse. She was always very polite, but very firm in she won't talk about it. She said, I don't talk about the event. She always called it the event. Well, he happened to be in Orlando for a writing conference, and he booked a couple extra days, rented a car, and he drove down to Tampa. I think it's like a 4-hour drive from Orlando or something like that. And he drives down to her house, knocks on the door. She comes to the door and he tells her who he is. And they had talked so many times on the phone that as soon as he said his name, she knew who he was. And she cut him off and she's like, I told you I don't talk about the event. What are you doing here? And he's like, well, I was in Orlando at this conference and I just drove down. I wanted to meet you and talk to you. And they talked back and forth a little bit. And then she's like, look, I don't talk about the event. Nothing has changed. But since you drove all the way down here, because she's a good Southern belle and classy lady, she's like, the least I can do is make you breakfast, come on in. However, before you come in, we need to have an agreement. If you ask me about the event, I'm going to ask you to leave, and I want you to respect that immediately. He's like, absolutely, I won't ask you anymore about the event. So he goes in, she's making breakfast, and he said, I understand you won't talk about the event, but will you at least tell me why you won't talk about it? And what she said was, I lived my whole life living in a world with a bunch of beliefs, things that were impossible, things that couldn't happen. Women didn't go to school. Women didn't get a college education. Women didn't go to work. Women stayed at home, took care of the house, and that was it. Men did this, men did that. Women were confined to, this is it. You take care of the home and that is it. And you do and say what someone else, your husband says jump, you ask how high type situation. So I lived my whole entire life with that belief of things that I couldn't do because they're impossible. She's like, so as a 67-year, she's like, one of those beliefs was a 67-year-old grandmother cannot lift up a 2-ton vehicle by herself with no tools, no help, nothing, just her 2 hands. She's like, if I was wrong about that, my whole entire life is wrong. And that's how we see things. And when I first heard that story, it woke me up as much as I'm guessing it did the journalists, or almost as much as Coach Calderon woke me up that day. it made me realize, like, yeah, I hold on to stuff because it's true. And then I start finding out it's not true. And I just stop talking to that person and pull away. And it's because of that. It's not the fear of being wrong in the moment. It's because we make it this grandiose thing of my whole life is wrong. I said, well, no, your whole life led you to that moment where you could find out another level of truth, another level of information that from this moment on is going to lead you to another path that's even better. And that's all it is. There's no failure. There's only feedback. That's it. It's only a failure when we choose to like stop, stop growing, stop trying to learn, stop trying to do good, stop trying to make a better life, better world. And luckily for that 67-year-old grandmother, he started basically coaching her, and he's like, what'd you always want to do? She wanted to be a geologist. And he's like, why don't you go to school for it? She's like, it'll take 5 years to get the degree I wanted. And she's like, I'll be 72. And he's like, well, in 5 years, you're going to be 72 anyway. You might as well be doing what you like. And she's like, you got a point. She enrolled in school. And I think actually 4 years later, she made it. And she became a professor at a community college and worked there, I think, until her death, and was happy as she'd ever been. I mean, there's stories like that all over the world, but it's my favorite part of it was that lesson. It's like, wow, that's what we do. It's like we make our entire life wrong if we let someone else show us a better way or new information. And we don't do it all the time, but there's areas we're doing it in. And I think about that all the time when I'm hung on to something and I'm really in a passionate debate with someone. I'm like, wait a minute. Is this a limiting belief that way because I'm afraid this is going to like make me look bad if I admit that I was wrong? Or is this because, no, this is truly what's right? Is this an ego thing or a wounded ego thing? Or is this an empowered, enlightened soul, inner child warrior of the light thing? It's like, what is it? I constantly find myself in those moments. And
moments of
most
cognitive
of the time,
dissonance.
yeah. Alison Armstrong defines relationships as instances of relating, and I love it because she has a whole, she bases a whole workshop off of it. But what she's saying is, she's like, it's just like that, like seeing our whole life as wrong because we've had this belief for X amount of time. And that's what, it's that same fear of being wrong or making our whole life a waste or whatever that keeps us in a crappy job, keeps us in a bad relationship. That's why people stay in abusive relationships, because it's like, then I'll have wasted all this time, but I've got this much time in, and we start applying value to it, and false value a lot of times. But this instances of relating thing is the relationship is only this moment. That's it. And it's like, let go of all the other crap, all the other BS that's happened. So I can, in this moment, just come from a place of love. And it's again, we're human. This is perfect world. This is what we're aiming for. We're going to screw up. We're going to mess up, and that's all right. But it's like just trying to get back on track. And every time we meet someone, because a relationship is not just a romantic situation, every interaction we have with another human, whether it's for 10 seconds in a grocery store line or 10 years in a marriage, it's like every one of those is a relationship. And we have a moment, just like Coach Calderon with me, we have a moment to make some kind of impact on that person. Just like the people on the Golden Gate Bridge waving and smiling, we have no idea what that 10 seconds can bring to either one of us, and even if we never find out, even if we pass somebody on the Golden Gate Bridge, we wave, smile, and it saves their life, and we never hear about it, I truly believe that there's some kind of energetic shift. There's some kind of karmic thing where it comes back to us. And if I'm wrong, cool. I would rather live that way 100% for 100 years and be wrong on that and still trying to go around making people like themselves a little bit more, or like life a little bit more. I'd much rather be wrong doing that than be right, cooped up in a cubicle, hating my job like I used to be, or even worse, just looking for happiness in an alcohol bottle or a prescription bottle or something, like really torturing myself basically day in and day out. But yeah, it's so easy to make an impact with someone. So much easier than we think. And it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't have to be this big grandiose thing. We don't have to build a memorial or a monument to them. We can just walk up and say, hey, just with some love in it, just some energy in it. Give somebody a hug, give them a high five. The hell with COVID, like touch somebody, give somebody a hug once in a while, shake a hand, something.
Be someone like their Jesus. Literally. Like, what if we, like John Maxwell used to always say about people will respond to the number that you put on their head. And that's a theory of self-image being on a scale of 0 to 10, what's your self-image? And that's the number you put on top of your head. And so if you're at an 8 and I'm at a 6 and we're in the same room, you're going to feel, or you're going to seem bigger and more intimidating because I see myself as smaller than you, because we're ultimately a reflection of the size of our problems and how much solution we feel that we have to overcome those things based on the self-image and the number that we put on our head. Because it's like, if our problem's a 4 and we're a 6, it's not such a problem. But if we're at a 6 and our problem's an 8, we got a problem. But if we move ourselves to an 8 and our problem's an 8, it's like, okay, I can see it from multiple perspectives. It's an issue, but we can deal with it. It's just like, let us change the number that we put on our own heads by actually lifting ourselves and saying that it doesn't matter whether your coach got paid to have that conversation with you, because he didn't. What did happen is that karmically, he gave you life force energy and you ran with it because it sparked what was there waiting for someone to see you. Because Oprah Winfrey used to say at the end of every interview that she did with anybody, everybody would kind of in their own way say, how'd I do? Because everybody wants to know, did you see me? Did you hear me? And was I enough? And it's like, he saw you, and he also separated you from your behavior and helped you do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, yeah, like I say, I used to do traveling consulting, and I remember I did several gigs over like a 4 or 5 year period of time at the BMW manufacturing plant. And manufacturing plant is not supportive of like excitement, creativity in the workplace. And it's definitely not cut out for someone like me, but you're inside all day long. And at this one particular location, they have 10,000 people in and out of there a day, all paid to be there, either subcontractors or employees or whatever, but 10,000 people in and out every single day. And first time I'm there, I think it was my second day there. And this one guy, friend of mine who lives in Sacramento, was with me. And he's like, hey, come here. We're bored. We're going out of our minds a little bit because we were basically just standing there. Like, it was ridiculous that they were paying us to be there at all. Like, we really weren't doing anything that a monkey couldn't have been trained to do. And so we're trying to come up with something to pass the time. And he comes over to me. He's like, so he started challenging me. He's like, you're the people guy. He's like, human behavior guy. He's like, rapport and all that. He's like, see that woman over there? He's like, looks like she's ready to kill somebody. He's like, dude, she hadn't smiled in 7 hours that we've been here. He's like, I'll bet in 9 minutes you can't go over and get her to smile. He's like, even just have an even face. He's like, she's had just a grimace on her face the whole time. He's like, looking like a bulldog or something, just frown. He's like, I bet you can't get her to grin. And I was like, I'll take the bet. Why not? Like, it at least was going to kill 9 minutes for me. 7 minutes in, I get her to laugh. It might have been a pity laugh or even a laugh of like, who is this wacko talking to me? But it happened, and she smiled. And we finished the conversation, went on, let her do her job. And that was it. I was in another department the next day, and I didn't see her the rest of that gig. I'm back 20 months later. So over 20 months, 10,000 people in and out every single day, with the exception of like a couple of days at Christmas, they're off. They work every day except for Thanksgiving. They're off like the few days at Christmas. They run a ghost shift. The only days they're actually closed are like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and I think New Year's. And that's it. They're open every other day, at least ghost crew. But when they run a light crew, it's like 5,000 people a day. It's still just ridiculous the amount of people that are in that place. So 20 months later, I'm back and I happen to be standing near that department and someone yells my name. I turn around and it was her. Her name's Pam. And she comes running up just full of excitement and talks to me for a little bit. And I was blown away. Like she remembered me. She remembered everything I said. And I happened to work in that department for like a week that time. And so we saw each other every day. And so we got to have a couple of quick conversations here and there and catch up. And I was like, how in the world? I was like, you must have the greatest memory. You should be one of those teaching memory seminar workshops and in the memory Olympics and all that. I was like, because it's like, it took me a moment to realize who she was. And I had changed a bunch. Like I had shaved all my facial hair, you know, it was lots of things had changed. And she's like, yeah. She's like, you brighten up my day. And she's like, I got to thinking, and she's like, I started watching you, how you interact with people. And she's like, man, that dude is in the same crappy place I'm in, but he's going around trying to make the best of the situation, even though he's bored out of his mind. She's like, because at least I had work to do. She's like, you were just standing there bored as could be. It's like, and started bouncing around and like trying to make everybody else's day better to make your day better. And she's like, it just kind of changed the way I look at things. And she was running that department. She was like the supervisor then. And up till then, apparently when she was working there before, it was just a means to an end. She was just going to work there until she either died or retired or found something better. Like it was just a job. Didn't mean anything to her. And so that, like, I got teary-eyed talking to her. I thought, my God, like all I did was go up and crack a joke. I was just trying to get free dinner from my friend Keith, who was going to buy me dinner. And I'm competitive enough. That was it. That I just wanted to not let him win, because he and I are really competitive with each other sometimes. But that completely changed how I interacted with people in the short term. That really solidified for me, like what I learned from Coach Calderon. And I would start doing it, like go into a gas station and see someone who works there, and, you know, they just hate their job or whatever, or they just had an argument with a customer and they're real grumpy or whatever it is, and go in and it's like catch an attitude with me as a customer. And I used to be like, you know what, because I'm big on customer service. So I used to get triggered by that. And it's like, customer, you want to be an ass to me? All right, I'll give you an attitude right back. I don't care, because I'm not going to get in trouble here. But then, you know, life experiences taught me otherwise. And after that interaction with Pam, that even before I ran into her again, it made me feel so good in the moment to do it that I started looking for other ways to apply it. And yeah, I was in this small little town in Texas on another consulting gig, and saw this manager of this convenience store. Every single day I would hear her catch attitude with customer after customer after customer. She just looked like she was just miserable as could be. And I was like, you know what? I'll do that same thing. I'm gonna see if I can make her smile by the end of the week, because she was like super grouchy. And about 3 days into the week, actually same thing, got her to giggle, and she knew me by name. Every day I came in there after that, she said, hey Kip, and she would greet me. She's still mad at everybody else, but it seemed to brighten up her day whenever I would come in, and we would just chat for a little bit, and I would just like find out what's going on with her, right? Because everybody was coming to her with a complaint. You know, she's management. She's got employees coming to her to complain. She has customers coming in to complain, and you know, her bosses are complaining to her. It's like everybody's dumping on her, and no one was ever asking, like, how are you? You know, and that's all it really took. And I was there for a couple months, and for I think about 9 weeks actually. And even after I left, the guy I was partnered with on that, he stayed for several weeks beyond that, because he didn't live too far away. And he's like, man, she asks me about you every time I go in there. He's like, every single time. He's like, she just adores you. And he's like, she's cheery to me because she knows I'm friends with you. It's like, I don't know what that did for her or her life, but so just brightening up someone's day in that moment and just trying to see them, you know. one of my favorite quotes, probably even shared it on the last one. I've heard it remixed 1,000 different ways, and I'll butcher it myself, but I think Abraham Lincoln was the first person who said it. It was something along the lines of, if you knew everyone's story, it would make it impossible not to love them. And it took me a long time to really be able to take ownership of that, because I used to be able to hold a grudge like it was an Olympic sport. But he also said, he's like, when you make your enemy your friend, do you not destroy your enemy? And that really spoke volumes. I was like, holy crap, yeah, that's a different way. Because the way I was raised was, if you don't like somebody, you do everything to tear them apart. And I did for a long time, and I was actually quite successful at it sometimes. And but I was tearing myself apart more than I was ever tearing anybody else apart. You can cover your own ears and mouth and say something, but your mind still knows what you said, and it takes everything personally. So every time we say something, we're saying it to ourselves tenfold, because also our mind takes it as more truth when we say it and when it hears our voice say something. And when I started being that way with other people, made me show up differently, made me feel differently about myself. It still does. And it's, Mother Teresa said, if you want to save the world, go home and love your family, and love yourself. It's like, that's all it takes. It's really not that much. And then go out and find a homeless person and make him feel like someone cares. Make him feel like he's heard, seen, It's like, that's all it takes. That's really all it takes. Look at the impact Mother Teresa had. Probably one of the top 5 most well-known people in history of the world. And that's all she did, was try to go out and make people feel like they were seen. That's it. Just a couple of questions, just a smile, just a wave, maybe embrace. You don't have to go as far as touching anybody, but you can. If you ever hug a homeless person, you will understand gratitude right then. Oh my God, the reaction or the response you get from them, it's amazing. Walking through downtown LA, I was in LA at the Staples Center nearby. I was at a men's workshop and went out to get lunch with a couple of the people. And this homeless guy came up and asked for some money, and actually had some extra food. So I gave him that, and I gave him whatever money. I don't carry a whole lot of cash on me ever. And it was the day Kobe died. It was like an hour and a half after they announced it. And I was like, here, man. I was like, I need something in return. And he's like, I'll do some work or whatever. I was like, I need a hug, man. And he was floored by that. And actually, for a moment, thought that like I was either setting him up or I was making a joke or, something. And I was like, I just want to give some love. And that was it. Like, embraced him and held on to him, for like a good 5 or 8 seconds. And we let go, and he's crying. Hell, I was about crying too. But he saw him the next day. Like, he obviously remembered me, but it's just to make him feel human for once, because so many people are walking by and not looking at it. It's like, you don't have to give every homeless person money or food or anything else. You just give them a kind word and eye contact. So few people are doing that, especially with homeless people. You're giving a human greatest gift ever, is making them start to see that humanity, that self-love, and that possibility in themselves. Like, that's the greatest gift. That's the greatest legacy we can give anyone, is to help them believe in themselves. Yeah. Anyway, I can go on that forever.
I wanted to share this, and then there's the part of me that is just like, we've been together for almost an hour and a half already, so we are coming up to the top of the time that we've got together, and I don't necessarily want to rush this, so I'm going to just breeze through it, and then we can elaborate more next week, and by then, maybe I'll have these 2 filled in by then. But basically what you see right here is what I am calling IKAIGAI, as you see in the center, which is a reflection of the Japanese tradition of the IKIGAI. So it's normally without the extra A. IKAIGAI is normally how it's spelled, IKIGAI. But the IKAIGAI is actually where you realize that if you take the letter values for each of the letters of attitude, it's the only one that adds up to 100%. So what you got right here is 2 interlacing hearts. And then it's continued on into some spherical formations that I just elaborated in so that it became like 2 tubes side by side. And ultimately, it's less about this shape. Although I did find out, just out of interest to share, that the Borromean rings, did you know that those are essentially those 3 rings that are interlaced and overlapping? But if you take away one of those rings, the other 2 are no longer overlapped. So they actually require all 3 of them present, which is kind of a reflection of that whole interdependent culture of having to have the third party in order for the other 2 to have a relationship. And then also over or codependent being distinctly different from dependent compared to rapport, or just the dependence. It's a different word, and I missed the first word that I had said with it, but I wanted to make a distinction between the 2 words, and so I can't do it now. But when I get to the replay, then I'll know what I was trying to say, and then we can carry on from there. And so we're at 5 minutes until the top of when this call was going to be. So I want to make sure that I honor those who showed up and those who are listening, to know that when you come to a summit, then you'll have the opportunity to be there for as long as the summit is said to be, and then we'll come together and then kick off the magic from where we left off. So in 2 weeks, if you want to come back again for another summit, then we'll be here again doing some digging into more stories and tales and teachings and techniques. And ultimately, this, though, is very relevant to legacy from the perspective of you have a profession and a mission, and then you have the thing that you enjoy. Above that, you have what earns money and then what you love doing. And at the foundation of these hearts, of the inner heart, is service and growth that lead to IKAIGAI, which is living well. So that's really that balanced approach, that if we find something we enjoy, that we love doing, that earns money, that can be a profession, and also help us fulfill the mission we came here for, we can grow and be of service and experience the IKAIGAI. Now, if we actually expand the heart to the outer circle, which I'm sure there's a play to that as well that I'm experiencing as I dive deeper into this teaching for my own self, and I share to you while in process, not because it's smart, but because it's the best that I've got. And so that's what I always offer you. And I say this too, because I hope it will inspire you to do your best, even if it's not a complete thought, or even if it's not a complete project. Be willing to just do your best and say, hey, I'm pretty sure this is freaking awesome, and that it can really help a lot of people. And if we can just unpack that in a deeper way, I am quite certain that a lot of people would benefit from that. And then I also want to be mindful of the time and to say that you can't really rush a deep teaching. So I can come back and go deeper next time, but for you to have an intro to that idea gives you preparation to be able to come back and then see this with new eyes, because you're not learning it for the first time, because now it's then a familiar idea, which is what triggers the reticular activating system, which is that part of the brain that is trained to notice certain details compared to others. It's like whatever your car is, I bet that's the one that you see the most in the parking lots and along the streets and when you're driving on the highway. Why? Oh, maybe it's the one that you want instead, and that's the one you notice. It just means your reticular activating system, the RAS in your mind, is fine-tuned to notice that particular thing. Until then you redirect your attention, and it's just like with our beliefs. It's like if you have a file this big, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to notice things that are of that file. But then when you experience a new baby idea introduced to the system of which this is today, and then next time it'll be a more familiar baby, and then eventually it'll become the familiar toddler that then kind of waddles into your understanding of life. And then it's like, okay, it's less intimidating because it's not wailing as a newborn needing attention. Codependence and like side by side collaboration. Codependence, and I'm not getting it, but I feel like there's something significant with this. So we'll get back to it. And I know that sometimes I seem a little disjointed, and I am, but I'm also very human, and I give you permission to be the same. So I say, whatever your natural giftedness is, that's what takes you into the outer ring and what people actually see. Your passion is generally how you can best express your natural giftedness. And passion is fire. Passion is willingness to take action on the thing that lights you up and gets your heart going. And it allows you to go the extra step and to take that child aside in the classroom and say, damn it, you matter, and you're not a reflection of your results so far. You can do better, and I expect you to, because I know you've got more potential than this, and you just need somebody to tell it to you. And right now, I'm willing to be that, so man up, without necessarily it being in those words. You know, and when I say man up, I think that actually very much ties down to the fact that if you are interested in what was mentioned about Article 61 of the Magna Carta 1215, then please come out on Thursday, January 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're getting back together with Jackie, where we're actually going to talk about standing as man and woman, as sovereign beings of the land that is ours, that we are being called to unite and say what is happening right now is not right. We all feel it, we know it, and we don't know what to do about it. But Article 61 seems to be the best option that I've come across that you might be interested in too. We've already done a summit and a podcast, so just look up Jackie Phoenix with the JACQUIE, and you'll find the Phoenix process that could actually see us be like the mythic experience or the mythic creature that ignites itself on the pyre of its own nest, where then it arises from the ash, blessed as who it became through the process of becoming it. So go through that the passion and the blank space of which pregnancy requires pause, to get to contribution and legacy at the very core and peak experience of when we flip these hearts upside down and make it the empowered experience of being human. Because we've answered the calling for what we came here for authentically, despite what the tribe said that we were here for. And we also are offering what the world needs. And when we have all of that met and gave ourselves space to grow into the legacy that we're here for, I think magic can truly be transformed. So now that I reflect on what this means, for me, it says the space is required. But for you, I'd love to know what it means to you and what it means for you. I would love to know what Kip's story meant to you and for you as well. And because there weren't so many of us that were actually present and live on this call, it's not to say that you have to be the ones to contribute, though if you are interested, by all means, would love to have you. But it is to say that you who are watching this in retrospect, and maybe hoping or wishing that you hadn't been on the call, know that you can be on the next one and choose to actually get yourself in the room, because all of this comes from how you apply the law of attraction, which is where we realize that the most 6 important letters of that whole LOA experience are action. Kip Brooks?
Yeah, for sure. So my wife gets quite annoyed with me sometimes because I'm so much into action that I don't always think things through. But yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's when you put yourself in that energy and that intention of whatever it is you're going after, and like say, hold that energy of like seeing people for who they really are. It's amazing how much people start seeing you for that, you know, for who you are, and how inanimate objects seem to show up, you know, just I mean, everything's energy. Science says it, theologians say it, they all just use different labels and different jargon, but it's everything's energy at the end of the day of some sort. And yeah, we really do start attracting to us what we've got our RAS system programmed to find, seek out. And just do a 24-hour challenge, not even 24, you're allowed to sleep, but do one day where you don't verbally say anything negative and try not to think it, but at least just don't say anything negative, and watch how much energy you have at the end of the day versus a normal, the day before or any other day. It's amazing. And that's all part of the law of attraction. And it starts, the more we do that, the more we hold ourselves in that frequency, the cooler and better things show up.
Brilliant. I love that, because when you were saying that, I got the image or the visualization in my head, I got the visual mental picture of just toxins and each thought being like a poison. And it's just like the reason that we oftentimes feel so drained at the end of a draining day is because it's just like we've taken in a lot of negative thoughts about the things that we experienced. And each time it was like drinking some poison. And so we really need to make sure that not only are we full of what is ours, but we also have to be really mindful about what we're putting inside and what we're topping what exists up with. Like, are we adding something that's nourishing and that's going to benefit our soul and our heart and help us live virtuously and live aligned, and be like a disciple that walks the good walk all the way home to ourselves? Or are we going to be somebody that allows us to drink poison and poison the well, and then the next day we find we've got disease because there's cellular disharmony where the poison got lodged because that part of the body was willing to hold it for us? So instead of hating the dis-ease that shows up containing all of the poison, it's like, what if instead we actually recognize that part of us was willing to hold that for us? And so give it love, give it thanks, give it appreciation, bless it and ourselves in the process, and then integrate with what previously was poison, sweeten it naturally.
Yeah, definitely. It's, epigenetics shows us all the time. They're coming out with more and more proof and evidence that almost no illness on the planet is physical. It's so much of it. Like, I think they're saying 99% now, but a couple of years ago it was 97%. 97% is based in mental and emotional. It's like, what thoughts do you think on a daily basis? Science says 70,000 plus a day, and they're the same thoughts as yesterday and the day before and everything else, and most of them are negative. But we can change all that. We can reprogram, we can move forward, we can release all the crap and live a whole new life from today on. And it doesn't make anything in the past wrong. It doesn't make us wrong. We're just doing the best we can with the resources we have available.
Absolutely. And thank you very much for making this experience part of one of those tools that you who are watching the replay are able to access. I always recommend movie medicine if you don't have time to watch everything, because there's so much. Recognize that if you just click on the part of the message that you feel called to, listen to that, that's your medicine, and then go off and apply it. And if you're able to come in 2 weeks from now, we're going to do another one at same time, so 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We'll just continue gathering and our numbers will grow, and we will be able to unite and contribute, and everybody is ultimately filling up the spaces. Everybody is filling up what's here, and it's already full, and yet there's room too. So it's just like we live in this paradoxical universe that is just magical, and I'm grateful to be with each of you. So thanks to everyone for showing up tonight.
Yeah, thank all of you for being here.
Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, thanks guys. That was the second of 2021 of the Peaceful Inner Warriors united summits. And so we'll look forward to having you again. Thank you for shining your light so bright in this world, and may we come together again very soon. Toodaloo.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.